Okay, see?
Yeah, Chris's, yours, and Luna. Those are the 3 pieces. Miles.
Riley doesn't have a piece. You're right. Now I agree.
I have a
All right,
piece.
so
I have a piece.
I'm gonna spin the wheel.
Are you gonna stream it, or are we just gonna trust that you're spinning a wheel?
Yes, come on, show us the wheel, Chris.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to. I guess I'll just discount whatever the result is first because I fucking started spinning it. I almost want to just say this is the wheel. This is the wheel right here.
Every single time, man. Every single time.
That was Riley.
Furious first, again.
That was
I know,
Riley.
it's gonna be me. Every single time.
Furious first,
Please,
again.
please, let's go!
No, it's Luna.
All right, Luna, you're going first. I hope that you actually wrote with the subject this time. I'm glad you decided to write on the subject. Atop one's head a mushroom is grown, a fungal immortal that should have been dead. It knows no god larger than a lone stone. Don't believe everything you see, child. Time then, time again, it has been said. But only I see the mushroom atop the head. They grow blue, they grow green, then they grow a shade of blue. And I'm left to wonder if mine looks of tangerines. Atop one's head a mushroom is grown, fungal immortals that should all be dead. The fear within them is beyond anything known. You cannot kill them in any way that matters, friend. There was also a second section that I saw. My head pounds, it thumps and drums as if thousands upon thousands of bombs got set off at once, entirely for my sole displeasure. My hands grow numb, and I find it harder to breathe, as the hammer within my head continues on without a moment's pause. Where did I leave off? Going on without even letting the flashing lights behind my eyes or panic in my heart to subside. The world around me doesn't matter. Whatever I was trying to do a moment ago doesn't matter. As the war being waged in my head stretches on with no end, I wonder if there is anything that will ever matter more than the pounding again. Slowly, even more painfully, I focus on flexing my fingers, one by one and then all at once, over and over again until I'm nearly unable to, and then till I'm actually unable to. The pounding calmed almost as soon as my body was beginning to become accustomed to the dull throb of my brain. Now everything felt light, lighter than a feather, lighter than any breath of air that had ever come to pass through my lungs, floating upon a cloud. My body fought to do anything. When one was this weightless, why would I ever move again? When the worst pain of my whole life had come and passed, why should I try to do anything more than live in the free moment I had now obtained? Glee, acceptance, always soon followed by doubt and panic. But when one forgets what pain and negatively affects, like altogether, there's always enough serotonin to go around. Forgetting that bad things had ever happened to you means that they will never happen, nor at any point you can remember any more. My body was light, but it moved. It moved without me caring to move it much, and my head rolls over, and my perfectly clear eyes take in the fullness of the world, dull and lifeless compared to the mix of chemicals floating off my body. People move and stagger, similar to how I move. They too feel as weightless and happy as I do, unburdened by pain and moving without a care. My body grows numb because I don't need to feel pain ever again, and my eyes become clear because they don't need to focus on any color or record any data. My fingers don't flex because I no longer need to precisely grab anything. My legs only stumble because they aren't attached to strings anymore. My life is weightless and gleeful because there is nothing in my head to hammer. My brain doesn't control me anymore because it was eaten. My head doesn't pound. Alright, let me check something real quick. Alright, cool. Good piece. We're gonna move on to the next one.
I was severely confused.
I wasn't that confused, but
I figured out what it was saying for the second one. At about
The
paragraph
first one's
3.
just Hollow Knight. Sorry, guys.
So that requires me to know
I've
anything.
heard bugs and mushrooms and orange. Hollow Knight.
Definitely.
this is not Hollow Knight.
Alright,
It's
well,
literally just Hollow Knight.
literally just
I'm
Hollow Knight.
fine.
Alright,
Just
who will
what
it be
Hollow
next?
Knight.
Riley or Deerie?
Please be Riley. I actually want to see
Sorry,
this piece.
Deary. I'm sorry, Deary.
Bismillah, Bismillah.
Sorry, Deerie.
Who's last again?
You're
Okay,
Sorry,
I'm gonna
dude,
go
yeah,
s-
you're the awkward middle child.
Wait. Is it Apocrypha or is it Apocalypto?
No, it's
It's a-
Apocalypto.
Yeah, it's a movie. It was based. I just named the title off of the movie.
You
Okay.
didn't even
Originally-
make your own original setting?
No. I mean, well, yes, I did. I don't know why I said no.
No!
I don't know why I said no. I don't know why I said.
You
I
were
don't know- I
like
don't know why I said no.
offended.
I-
How dare you say
I
would
just
do
said
that?
no.
No, Apocrypha does sound kind of cool.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
Okay.
I named it
actually the end of the
Apocalyptic.
apocalypse.
By
like,
Deerie Ahmed. Thank you,
Yeah,
Deerie.
I'm gonna go
for-
use the bathroom now and running away. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
have fun.
thank you for including your last name. We were worried we'd think some other dearie, you know?
I'm gonna beat. I did meet one Zirie in Columbus once. That
I've
was
never
weird.
met another Deerie other than you.
It's like an East African name, so if you met an East African, there's a chance.
That's the theory. That's the actual.
Yeah, no, it is an actual
Apocalypto is a
name.
historically...
I can beat you.
Shut up.
Dang.
Apocalypto is a historically inaccurate film co-written and directed by the Daniel of Hollywood, a la Mel Gibson. The movie is set in Yucatan, Mexico, during the decline of the Mayan civilization. The reason why I'm even writing about a film from the 2000s is that the central premise of the film was quite terrifying. The idea of your society slowly collapsing into a pure anarchy as you try to protect your family from the repercussions of a weak/fragile government is something that no man ever wants to experience. I sometimes like to
Really?
imagine... I don't know. I sometimes like to
You're-
be imagined being President James Buchanan and watching America quickly split into two separate countries, barreling towards war, or being a native tribesman cutting down the last tree on Easter Island. Sometimes, while I am fast asleep, I dream of being a dodo and running away from a Dutch hunter. I imagine myself waddling through... dodo. Wandering through the Mauritius, as a tall, grisly man walks ahead of me and points a large gun barrel towards my dumb feather neck.
This doesn't sound like too much of a fantasy anymore after you said dog.
I'm so confused what's going on. As you could tell, I am a man with a wild imagination. I jump around from topic to topic with little care or even a drop of gravitas. Once I was consoling someone who recently lost their mother to the recent heat. Okay. A recent heat wave, and when they asked me what they were going to do, I decided to start asking if they had a favorite dinosaur. The comment didn't even make any sense, and this example doesn't really show the fact that I have an overreactive imagination. All it shows that I am insensitive and unnecessarily cruel.
Base?
Ignoring that fact, I never ever... God damn it, Trey. Believed that I would have an opportunity to live through these nefarious scenarios that I cooked up in my head. Never thought that I would feel the terror that the main character from Apocalypto had to live through. Although I have always dreamt about it, I never actually wanted to live through such a period of political turmoil. Actually, thinking about it now, I might have wanted to experience something along those lines back then, but now I am living through this travesty. I want to bash my past self's head with a brick for those thoughts. Never again would I take for granted the privileges of a society that isn't going through a steep decline. There I go again, rambling about a bunch of nonsense that has nothing to do with anything. I'm starting to feel like an old man rambling about how back in their day they wouldn't have put the AC to max during March, or how they used to go to the beach and touch the small coarse sand. It's a bit odd that even though the world is in a panic, I am still able to go online and watch Hulu 3. I guess not much change in my day-to-day life experience, except for the extreme pressure building all around me, signaling the fact that I'll be shot by a Chinese bullet in approximately 12 days. Didn't know that societal pressure could be so specific. There's nothing for me to do except scroll onto the highly religious doomsday sites such as 4chan or the New Redemption of Jesus Christ. It seems that things become worse and worse. People retreat towards more religious institutions. I am quite certain that I saw in the news yesterday that this year was the first time their congregation actually gained members. This new wave of religious zealotry designed to give an answer as to why this is happening. As I was scrolling through these sites, I happened to find the main YouTube channel for the new hit Christian denomination called the New Redemption of Jesus Christ. Side note, I was always confused by that name. I didn't understand what the name was trying to convey. Like, were they trying to redeem Jesus himself, or were they trying to redeem his name? I was told by a colleague of mine that the name meant that they were trying to redeem America for Jesus. But why did they decide to word it in such an obtuse way? A much better title would be The Redemption of America for Jesus Christ, although that title might be a tad bit too straightforward. Lucky for me, I found the YouTube channel just around when they started live streaming a sermon. As I started watching with approximately 200,694 people, that's not even counting the tens of thousands of black and white Protestants that were crammed in the super church, a young dapper fellow with a slick black hair walked up to the stage. The young man wore an odd suit, not common to preachers. The suit itself was dark red and had several small yellow buttons. The coat on top of the suit was gray and had twice as many buttons as the suit itself. He wore a pink bow tie and dark blue jeans. He seemed to be enjoying the fervent crowds which cheered on his entrance. Tens of thousands of people, old and young alike, screamed and wailed and praised this young man's name. For a moment, I forgot this was a denomination of Christianity and not a cult with him as the leader. As he grabbed the microphone, the young man stared straight into the camera and yelled triumphantly that Jesus had returned to America. The live comment on the YouTube video spammed tens of thousands of cross emojis and American flags. Everyone in the audience stood up and cheered for that man because of that one line. Even though what the man had said was probably false, only around 20-30% of Americans thought themselves as Christians, a far cry from the 70% 40 years earlier, he said what those people truly desired. A return to times where most of the people you'd see on your day-to-day held your beliefs. The young man preached about how the degeneracy which he thought had taken over Christianity over Christianity in America, and held all these events were punishments from God, and how we have forsaken him. The young man then ended his sermon. I should note that he never actually read anything aloud from the Bible during the speech. Instead, he talked about politics as my old uncle used to do during Thanksgiving. This hot weather, these endless wars, these punishments doled out from our Creator. This rampant perversion on our society is because of one man, and that man is President Dullard. This is when everybody collectively booed as if they were a hive mind and someone ticked them off to an immeasurable degree. Calm down now, the pastor said in a silky Midwestern accent. You guys must save your energy, your anger for the upcoming election. You guys are all tired from booing, then how the hell are you going to shovel the 50 pounds of snow in your driveway so you can get to the 2 polling booths in your state? As if on cue, everyone laughed. The pastor, clearly reveling through the laughter, continued. This nation is drowning with over $45 trillion of debt. McDonald's prices are through the roof, and there are hundreds of millions of godless children trying to annihilate this already desecrate nation. And, he really emphasized that "and" there. You know what the president is doing? Increasing unemployment benefits? Now who the hell is going to work if you can just get paid if they can just lay down and do nothing? I can understand if they were reading the Bible, but these lazy, incompetent children of today are feeling this descent into madness. Someone has to stop this, and that person will be me. Everyone was too stunned to even move. I was also stunned, not because of his presidential announcement, but because of the fact that this young man isn't 12, but in fact middle-aged. Today is the start of a new America, an America in which we all fear God again. Can I hear an amen? Or a amen. Not an amen, a amen, according to Deere. The crowd stood up. The crowd stood up. Yes, it is an AA Ron, a certified AA Ron moment right here. Today is the start of a new America. The crowd stood up and all collectively said amen. I even said that, and I haven't been a Christian in years. I will bring America back I will bring back an American, not America, an American, in which you can be proud of. An America in which we don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to those greedy fucking heating companies. Oh, did I curse right now? Forgive me for my inappropriate language. You see, I get a tad bit emotional when talking about this nation's present and future. I can't stand by while these demonic forces rip apart America's bosom, and I can't just let that slide. I refuse to let that slide, for this is my purpose given me by God. Everyone in the large super church cheered and celebrated as if each and every one it was each of every one of their birthdays. The live stream gathered over 2 million concurrent viewers, and that was just on YouTube alone, leaving millions either hopeful for another great awakening led by Pastor Jacob Freeman. Okay. Why see Jacob Fetterman now? Never mind. Perspective change. The White House.
Sorry. I named him. Oh, Fetterman is the Pennsylvanian lieutenant governor, and Freeman is a Californian senator. But I think I'm mistaken the two on accident.
God damn it.
That's what I was trying to see. Earlier on, I said like the names are different. There.
I was chilling with my wife on my bed, watching a rerun of Vikings, when I got the call that cult leader Jacob Fetterman announced his presidency in a bid to unseat me. I, at first, returned to my TV show with my wife, but after checking twit, I'm gonna kill you, dear A, and seeing him #1 on the trending, I realized that this twink could possibly, maybe become the next Donald Trump or Josh Hawley and take the redneck nation by storm. I called all of my aides, interns, and just for one good measure, my cabinet members, and summoned them to my small Oval Office. I thought it would be funny to put all these stuffy bureaucrats who have only worms in their brains, to stuff them in a room whose only purpose is to serve as a photo op. I put up his speech onto my large screen. By the way, I told my Secretary of State to drag out this obsolete TV screen and somehow shove it into this small stupid office in 5 minutes. Why? I used my remote to scroll through the speech and paused right before he started his amateur kickoff speech. Right before I pushed play, one of my interns, I forgot that cunt's name, asked in a stupid meek voice if we should really be focusing on a political opponent and not on the Category 5 hurricane barreling towards one of the poorest cities in America. After firing her, I pushed play, and after watching perhaps the most asinine speech I have ever heard in my life, instead of criticizing my approach to the apocalypse, he whined about how none of us followed his stupid book. Ha! I have a perfect idea. This election is going to be easy. I'll be able to crush this small little twink in 5 seconds flat. I walked towards my favorite sofa and jumped into it. As I sink into that soft, nice cotton, I quickly dream about winning 40 to 45 states and becoming one of the greatest presidents in the world. As I closed my eyes, my wife pulled onto my sleeve and pulling me back to the reality. I looked at her and everyone in a confused manner since I didn't understand why they were still there. As I panned about in the extremely dense room, I noticed that my chief of staff was watching something on his phone. I assumed it was something work-related, but before I looked somewhere else, I noticed that a diaper ad was playing on his phone. I immediately jumped off of my sofa, causing my wife to fall on the floor and yelled at my chief of staff to buy up a crapload of ad space in Iowa immediately. He looked at me in a very confused manner and then approached me in order to whisper something into my ears. He asked if the reason I wanted ads was that I was afraid of Pastor Freeman. I wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying. That's what I assumed from the few words I did hear. This caused me to chuckle quite a bit. After I was done with my laughing fit, I replied to my chief of staff, No. The ad space is not for me. It's a gift from me to him. I'm glad you had to dialogue this. Dear A. On what planet do you dialogue question marks? Whatever. Everyone looking at me in a confused manner, and I stared back at them in an even more confused manner. It should be quite obvious as to what I am hinting at. And even a dying donkey can understand what I'm trying to say. How can they be so confused at something so simple? In order to explain a concept that's as simple as the math equation 1 plus 1, I turned towards my aides and sighed before describing my ultimate plan in a very obtuse manner. After 30 minutes of explaining my master plan, one of my aides raised her hand. I turned to her and asked her to speak her mind. She then showed me a video of the hurricane decimating a farm and asked if we should be focusing on this instead of the chronically deadly hurricane. Now, I would have fired her on the spot if it wasn't for the fact that I'm planning to use her as a scapegoat for a possible future scandal. After ignoring her suggestions, I decided to end my impromptu presentation by saying, in conclusion, we will use the money to assist the Freeman campaign by buying ads for him in an attempt to help him win the primary so I can crush him in the general. Robert Klein, my idiotic and severely overweight campaign manager, mumbled something under his breath. I naturally assumed that this mumble was directed was an insult directed towards me or a frivolous concern, so I turned 180 degrees from my position towards the mumble. I then took off my glasses and glared directly into his sweaty, bulbous forehead, clearly implying that I wanted to hear what he had to say. He immediately sat straight up and asked perhaps the dumbest question that I had the honor to hear in my 20 years in public life. Never before have I ever imagined a question so bafflingly stupid in such a genuine manner. The reason he mumbled his objection was probably because his body knew how stupid it was. Stupid, 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 stupid. That's the only word I can use to describe this man. Every motion that this man makes, every thought this man has, every breath he takes is utterly stupid. When we heard this question, most of my mistakes. I mean, aides looked away in secondhand embarrassment. Even my brain-dead aides and my infamously slow-witted embarrassments called interns knew that what he said was stupid. Oh God, why did you leave me here in this planet with men whose brains are the size of maggots and whose personalities are on par with a dying hippopotamus? Here was the soon-to-be-fired campaign manager's questions. So are we buying ads showing him in a good light, or are we buying ads to tarnish the reputation of the rest of the Republican field? To the average person, this might seem like an innocent question designed to clarify an admittedly confusing proposition. However, to a political insider, this question can only be met with insults, for it is completely and utterly stupid. Why would we buy ads tarnishing the Republican pedophiles in order to help the fucking twink? That's such an efficient way of helping someone in a crowded primary. It'd be a million times easier to raise a politician's profile and use ads to defend attacks from rivals than to attempt to trash every challenger. I turned away and took off my cape, revealing my white suit with gold stars imbued to the left side of said suit. I then walked towards the broad table made up of a type of wood that no one knows nor cares about, and pick up a binder filled with papers that seemed important but no one cares, and threw that binder at the dull fat man, hitting him straight in his ugly, pimply Indian face. This naturally caused a reaction that I can describe as feminine. There were screams, gasps, and bulged voices that were of superficial criticism. I then walked up towards the now crying Robert Klein and whispered something into his ears, which caused his tears to cease and for his ears to perk up. I'm glad that's where we end. With that one. God, I hate you so much, Jerry. He's also muted and deafened, so I can't shit-talk him with him hearing. God damn it. You're useless. Dear A.
That.
I don't know. Well, we have another 2 pages, it seems. So,
No.
perspective change. Miami, Florida. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. in order to start my shift at work. I put on my clothes, rode the local bus, electric bus. Not just a bus, an electric bus down I-40, and approached the head office of the Seawall Company. I punched in my cards and breathed in the deeply polluted air. I then put on my yellow construction hat and rode an escalator up the 44 stories tall wall that surrounds the entirety of the East Coast. I stared at the concrete wall as the sun slowly melted me. As I got to the top of the gigantic wall, I saw my manager yelling at the night shift for not effectively putting away their tools. The night shift stared at my angry manager in a very confused manner. It seems that hiring a bunch of climate refugees and yelling at them in English isn't the best way to communicate. Every day, except for Mondays and Fridays, for 12 hours, I scaled this national treasure and the crowning jewel of the Dillard presidency in order to make the structure go higher and higher. We, the last remaining human construction workers, work alongside our replacements, aka robots, so we are able to help stop the ferocious rising tides. The work is absolutely degrading, backbreaking, and dangerous. I have seen coworkers falling to their deaths because of the gale-like winds. But I do take a great deal of pride in my work because I know that without us, much of the eastern seaboard would have fallen deep into the sea, just like Atlantis. I walked up towards my manager, Nick, and asked him what my assignment was for today. I typically just put up nets around the section of the wall so that if people do fall off, they don't become a new story or lawsuit. He turned towards me and said in a scrush of British, can you clean up the north face of the wall? You know, mate, get rid of any fucking bird shit and the like. I was a tad bit confused and looked at him quizzically. Typically, we never cleaned up the wall, and when we did clean up the wall, we just hosed down any leftover food or animal feces. To be frank, I don't know how bird shit got to the top of the wall. I just didn't realize that the few remaining singles left on in America love this specific portion of wall and fly almost 440 feet just to shit all over the place. Why are you putting me on shit duty, Nick? How did you hit the knees, mate? I looked straight towards my manager's eyes with a face that screamed, how would I have had the time to look up to the news while I am putting nets in order to prevent suicide? My manager laughed for a bit and said that I lived under a rock. Apparently that I was slaving while I was slaving away at work, the President of the U.S. decided to visit this section of the wall for a campaign stunt.
That was the greatest British accent I've ever heard in my life.
I'm so glad that you like it. I put on some ropes, tightened my harness, and began to descend the large wall, trying to scrub every last piece of dirt I saw. While scrubbing the wall, I saw the President's convoy approach the north side of the wall. The envoy was joined by a bunch of cars who I can only assume were security personnel and
I don't know why
journalists.
I capitalized security.
Singular.
Journalist. Journalist. His name is Bill.
The president,
journalist.
the president, his campaign manager, wait, a new one, and a couple of cameramen then ascending up the Great Wall.
You
They
can
then
clearly
be-
tell that this is what I was writing. while we were
China.
They then
talking. Now.
China. They then began setting up several signs that read "Dullard 2050, protecting America once again." Naturally, I couldn't read this sign since I was crawling below them like an undignified maggot, but I was able to see this series of events on a recording published by C-SPAN. The president approached the newly made podium and began his kickoff speech for his re-election. Before he even spoke, he had a presence that would intimidate any man. Typically, only the Republican Party embraced this ultra-masculine persona. Most of their politicians were veterans of the recent wars in the resource-rich Democratic Republic of the Congo. However, after losing the 2042 elections, the Democratic Party decided to elect the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Jake Dullard. I think he changed his name again. It really is true that during moments of crises, people tend to follow strong men. After naming off several accomplishments during his terms, such as his monthly UBI plan or his anti-automation plan, and his most popular accomplishment, ending the war with the DRC, however, the president then began to talk about his least popular accomplishment, this ugly wall. I understand that you miss playing in the sand and going out to the beach and skinny dipping in the middle of the night, but we all have to sacrifice something in this fight against Mother Earth. I mean, would you rather your hometown be swept away by the maddening sea, or would you rather be forced to see something ugly? The choice is obvious. Death or security and prosperity. That's the two choices that you have today. And it doesn't even end with a period and a quotation mark.
Well, I'll still type it.
I can't do this.
Wait.
I
I'm
don't
No,
have
it
any.
stays how it is.
I don't think
Yeah.
I have anything to say about that.
I'm about to die inside.
Alright,
It's okay.
I'm going to judge your piece very harshly.
Why? Why him in particular?
Well, because I judged your piece very harshly.
Oh.
You just weren't here to hear the harsh comments.
Dude, I don't
That's
even
you-
care
that's
if
my
you judge
big
it
point.
harshly, Chris. I just
No.
hate hearing my own writing.
I'm not doing another sussy
laugh.
imposter fucking dumbass. No.
She said
look-
this is not a shit post. That's what she said.
And I'm not reading it.
Well, you can send it to me, Lapis,
I
and I'll
don't
see-
care. It's
I'll see if it's not a shit post, and then I'll tell Vinny.
I don't know if I want to read it, Lapis. I'm gonna be straight with you. I might rather kill myself. We'll see.
Wait, Lapis. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious is it?
Does that mean we spin the wheel, Chris? Again.
No,
It's
we're
a-
going on
it's
to
a
you
one
now.
on
Wheel
the
will
scale.
go with
Yeah,
Jeff.
never mind.
Lapis doesn't have a piece.
Lapis doesn't have a piece. So,
Oh.
okay, so Shuji snapped away from his slumber to the trembling of the ground. Though the tremor ended Okay, Riley. I have a question for you. Unmute real quick.
Don't believe him.
You have not introduced us to the setting, or the characters.
It's,
Not all fucking
That's alright.
need
That was planned.
intro.
It's just more that...
wait, what is that thing called when
What
it like
book
jumps
do
into
you
the
start
action?
up with like If this year on this day all this shit happened, what good book started up with that fucking opening?
It's not that. It's just, I'm quickly skimming it.
It's one of those start in the middle kind of things.
Yeah.
I hate
Is
that.
that what it's?
Okay, well,
It's
I don't
called
know
in
about that.
red, whatever. I can't pronounce it.
I hate that
French
so
word.
much sometimes. Shunji was still outside, beside the passenger side of the car, with his arms and head resting on his knees, which tucked towards his chest. Is this Japan 2026? He was tempted to take a quick glance across the other side of the car, though decided against it once the tremors started again. Shuji was uncertain what direction the Colossus was facing, and he wasn't willing to take any chances.
Infinite Stratos.
What the fuck is a Colossus? Maybe that is a... Maybe you're right. Maybe that is a...
Get there.
We get there when we get there! You haven't described it. That's my whole thing. Like, if I knew what a Colossus looked like, I'd be like... Shuji scanned his surroundings, searching for any other form of cover to hide behind in case it was moving towards him. But other than the car, there was nothing nearby. There were some buildings, though given the distance, Shuji doubted he would be able to make it if the Colossus facing his direction. The momentary tremors from the Colossus stopped only for them to routinely start once again. Shuji was glad he was cautious earlier. The rumbling of the periodic tremors began to get progressively louder, meaning it was closing the distance. Though this presented another problem entirely on what he was going to do when it was right on top of him. Shuji's mind began racing for anything he could do, but in reality, there was very little he could do other than to hope it would eventually change its course. Minutes passed by as the Colossus continued its stride. With every step, Shuji began to loathe tremors more and more. He already hated the Colossus with a passion, but the tremors were painful reminders that the life he once knew and cherished was gone, probably forever. After what must have been 20 minutes, the rumbling finally began to get quieter, and quieter until it eventually stopped altogether. Shuji hesitantly dragged his head upward and casted a glance across the other side of the car. In the distance was a massive gray mass that was now still frozen in place. Most importantly, its glowing fluorescent eyes were out of sight as its back was turned towards Shuji. Shuji breathed out a sullen sigh of relief before peering into the inside of the car. To his dismay, all that was in the driver's seat was a couple of bones and faded bloodstains. Tears welled up in his eyes, though he knew they would be there. It disheartened him nonetheless to see it with his own eyes. As a few tears streamed down his cheek, Shuji laid back down against the car, contemplating what to do. The world as he knew it collapsed, and all that was left was the ruins, which were an agonizing reminder of what the world once was. With the Colossuses roaming the earth, Shuji doubted that there was any place truly safe. It would only be a matter of time before he would succumb to the Colossus as well. That fact alone made him question if there was anything really left for him in this ruined world. Shuji's brooding...
Are you sure the plural of Colossus is Colossuses, Riley?
Colossi?
Colossus is an acceptable
Yeah,
plural
it
form.
sounds like Colossi,
I'm not gonna use colossi.
but it
Also
sounds
cute.
better.
Does it really?
Yes,
Colossus
It sounds
might
stupider,
just be
though.
the plural.
Stupid.
It might be like goof,
many colossi.
or not goof. No, like
Moose. It's like moose.
moose. Yeah,
It's not
it just
mooses.
might be like moose.
It's moose.
Colossus is
not
an
me.
acceptable plural form of colossus. It's fun facts of writing. But I guess I'll change it.
It just doesn't sound good.
Is this how you spell it?
Anyway,
Shuji's brooding would be cut short by the sound of footsteps. Someone was making their way towards him quite quickly. Shuji raised his head to find women. A faded brown suit rushing towards the car at astonishing speed. Shuji
That's
simply
pretty
laid his
gay.
head... Well, yeah, you made it women, not
Oh,
woman.
no.
Or a woman, specifically, is how you should have worded that. No, it's find women.
Or
It's hard to find all of them. It's like Pokemon.
Alright,
sound-
fixed. A
okay. A women.
Hey, women.
Okay, so Shuji simply laid his head back down and waited. The sound of footsteps would soon be replaced with the sound of her gasping for air. From the sound of it, she couldn't have been more than about 2 meters away. Shuji finally raised his head to see the woman slumped against the car, trying to catch her breath. Her suit, though certainly messy and worse for wear, matched nicely with her brown hair. Based on her appearance, she was likely in her late 20s or early 30s. The car doesn't have much gas, though there is plenty of food and water if you need it. Still catching her breath, she held up her finger, motioning Shuji to wait a moment. Still slumped against the car, she finally caught her breath and looked off into the distance. Thanks for the
Riley,
offer.
can you tell your family to stop popping balloons?
Those aren't balloons, those are fireworks.
No, I know, but it sounds like popping
Big
balloons.
fireworks
So.
in the background. Shit, tomorrow's 4th of July. I just realized.
Herder.
Do you know how many of them are in the city? Shuji furrowed his brow. Why would anyone want to go back to the desolate ruins of Tokyo? Was beyond him. Even if you were searching for someone, chances are they're dead or already left the city. You can't be serious. You're planning to go into the city? Since we haven't had a major intervention from the military, it's probably safe to say the whole world went to hell. Shuji gave a slight nod. It wasn't difficult to imagine, but that didn't answer his questions. Well, if the world is screwed with a little chance of recovery, might as well try and find what brought an end to the world. Shuji gave the woman a perplexed look. Even for someone who lets curiosity get the best of them, it seemed like a futile pursuit. Where would one even begin looking? And the answer somehow lies in Tokyo? Well, right before the world fell into ruin, there was a news article online. Apparently, Tokyo suffered a blackout right before the earthquake. Moments after I read that report, Hitachinaka was hit by seismic tremors as well. Afterward, most electronics, including ones that rely on batteries, didn't work. Most vehicles became inoperable, and we had some visitors bring about the apocalypse. Sound familiar?
Is hiding?
Shuji's eyes lit up as he realized the implications of such an article. If you were outside of Tokyo, it would be difficult to mistake what happened for a blackout. That isn't too surprising, but the fact the article was released right before the apocalypse even reached the other prefectures outside of Tokyo meant one thing. So it all likely started in Tokyo. The woman smiled as Shuji put it all together. Yeah, so if there
was an earthquake.
Yeah, so if there are any answers, then they likely lie in the city somewhere. To Shuji, the reasoning was sound, though the idea you'd be able to find anything was quite far-fetched to say the least. Not the least, the list.
Please. No.
Any idea what you're searching for?
Deria moments.
No, but I was a private investigator, so I figured I had AI shot I did.
What? Chris, what are you doing? I said it's written, I figured if anyone had a shot, I did. Uh-oh.
That's not what it said.
That's not what it said.
You actually convinced me for like a solid second. That
No, but I was a private investigator, so I figured if anyone had I shot, I did.
Supposed to be a shot, isn't it? Right?
Yes, it is.
Riley, how do you screw this up? They're on the other sides of the keyboard.
Shuji
we all have Deria moments.
Shuji thought the woman was a bit crazy to think that she could actually find anything, but her rational approach painfully contrasted with that notion. And if you don't find anything? Well, it's either that or try to escape to some remote island in the Pacific. She then stood up and turned towards the city. Shuji remained silent for a moment, thinking what could possibly bring about the end of the world, though nothing very coherent or sensible for the matter really came to mind. Well, there are dozens within the city. I wasn't particularly keeping track. Thanks. Do you want to come along? She questions as she extended her hand out. What? Shuji stuttered as he struggled to respond. Shuji himself didn't have any plans, except the vague notion that he would escape to somewhere in the countryside and try to live the rest of his days in peace. I can tell you that even the boonies have quite a few of our apocalyptic visitors. Worst comes to worst, we don't find anything. We'd at least be able to search for a working boat and make our way to somewhere in the Pacific. Shuji pondered in silence. For the last 3 days, he's been trying to escape the city. to finally make it to the outskirts, only to receive a proposition to return. Though, if their search didn't pan out, an island in the Pacific certainly sounded better than in the countryside. Shuji sighed before standing up and exchanged a handshake with the woman. The name is Shuji Ishikawa, Yumiko Saike. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as Ichiro Sato had just lost a game of shogi. The day was surprisingly slow at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Headquarters. Across the table from Ichiro we have new characters now. Thank God. I'm so glad I get to meet new fucking people! They're not even the same characters!
Not bitch anymore. Fucking the main character was a bitch. Our first characterization of him was he's sad. Oh, thanks, Riley. That's helpful. You just characterized your one main character as a bitch. And then they're like, oh, it all started in Tokyo. Worst come to worst in Tokyo, we can just leave. No, the worst comes to worst, you fucking die. That's the worst thing that happened. There's these colossus, whatever, right? We don't know what those are. For all we know, this is just Attack on Titans, the pre-sequel. Okay? And so, the worst comes to worst, you get eaten alive. I don't know what these characters are thinking.
So there's a major flaw with this story, Riley. You haven't explained what the threat is to us.
Exactly.
We don't know what we're supposed to be scared of.
No. There can be stories where the threat isn't necessarily explained, but from how the characters, like, describe it, or, like, react to it, it's threatening, right? So it gives good emphasis. But the thing is, they've given emphasis to this threat, right? Once. That alone is a problem. Second, I'm assuming this is supposed to be a serious piece, right, Riley?
Yeah.
Because, like, I wouldn't call Dirie a serious piece. Well, it seems like... I'm not trying to shit on you. Like, the writing had less fucking, like, mistakes than Riley's does.
You mean Darius?
But,
You mean, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not shitting on your piece. But, like...
I mean, that's a right that you want to say.
Oh, no, I'm talking to Dirie. Your piece, you took seriously. So I am going to seriously start picking apart this narrative. They've given emphasis to this threat, their own characters have. And then they're like, and then with their own batshit logic, by the way, which, by the way, makes no sense. The power went out in Tokyo, therefore this happened. No. Power just goes out when earthquakes happen.
Let me
A
just
power
say,
line fell over.
It wasn't a normal earthquake.
But even if it was an abnormal earthquake, that's still a common thing to happen. The power line fell over. That doesn't mean everything is instantly part of Tokyo. Okay, but following along these characters' logic, right? I'm sorry that we haven't finished this piece, but all of these things are just fucking weighing on me, okay? Following the logic, right, of your characters, of it started in, fucking Tokyo, and then, these colossus, whatever they are,
Maybe the story would explain it later, though.
is what it is. I don't know what it is.
So, I did not
Started
explain,
there.
I didn't exactly explain this in the story, but I'm just going to tell you right now. The Colossus emerged from the earth. To give you...
You haven't
What?
explained that.
I know I
He
haven't
doesn't.
explained
He
it.
just
I
said he
didn't.
doesn't.
I don't.
That seems like a pretty major thing to not...
I didn't finish writing the
Explain.
thing, alright? I'm sorry.
So I have all the right to critique it.
Yes, you do. I'm not
It's
denying
also
that.
not finally edited, so the character motives are there.
Yeah.
We don't... I'm just...
Alright, finish writing and then I'll give the rest of my
Hold
thoughts.
on, I just want to say something.
Or finish reading.
I'm
Sorry.
pretty sure the second half is like I'm less confident about the second half than the first half, so I'm already.
Are we- Is this a halfway point?
Well,
I thought we had like a page left.
we have about 3 more pages.
Oh my god, Riley! If you're less confident about this part, okay, let's start.
It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon as Ichiro Sato had just lost a game of shogi. By the way, new characters. Fuck you, Riley.
Yeah,
Across the
3
table,
pages in, 2 characters.
across the table from Ichiro was Ryoichi, who had a wry smile from his recent victory. Unlike Ryoichi, who had a passion for the game, Ichiro simply played to pass the time during his break. In the corner of the break room was Mikoto, who remained unfazed on his phone like usual. So we have 3 new characters. Not just 1 new character. 3.
Hold on, no. Rai. Isn't Rai supposed to be, like, sarcastic in a way? Or, like, not super genuine?
What?
Well, this guy won, right?
Yeah.
And then he described it as a
Wry smile.
Rai. Which
That-
isn't a,
Let me look
like,
up the definition of wry.
Right, it's kind of like more of
It's
like a
mocking.
kind of smile.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's
mocking
kind of-
thing.
okay, so he's mocking the other person. Okay, that's fair.
It's like a mocking sort of thing.
I thought it was just, like,
Not
the
disgenuine.
smile you do when you're disappointed, you know?
Yeah,
You're
no,
just
it's more of like a
great.
crooked kind of like smile.
Yeah, okay.
Want to start
Continue.
another game? Ichiro checked the clock. They only had a few minutes left before their break was over. We won't get far before the break's over. That's fine, we'll just continue the game tomorrow. Ichiro nodded in response and began setting up his pieces when Mikoto approached the table and crossed his arms, seemingly observe the game. You know, Mikoto, it's a bit late to come and watch. We won't be getting far, joked Ryoichi. Yeah. Suddenly, the entire room started to shake violently. Mikoto, who was caught off guard, nearly fell to the ground before catching himself on the table. Ichiro quickly realized it was an earthquake and got under the table, with Ryoichi following suit. Seeing his 2 co-workers taking shelter, Mikoto quickly pulled himself under the table to join them. Just from the shaking alone, Ichiro could tell that it wasn't a minor earthquake. The sharp tremors would finally come to an end. After making sure that they were all right, the 3 of them got up from under the table and inspected the damage to the room. Though it only lasted about half a minute, the room was thrown into disarray, leaving the room as a mess. Other than that, the structure of the room was undamaged. It comes without warning, huh? Ryoichi sighed as he picked up his shogi board from the floor and placed it on the table. Wait a second, we didn't even receive a warning when the earthquake started. That was odd. Mikoto quickly checked his phone, only to have a more baffled expression. Something happened to mine, it won't even turn on. I know for a fact it had some battery left. Mikoto explained as he turned his phone, showing a black screen. Ichiro quickly pulled out his phone, which turned on, as it should, with one exception. We don't have service. The service tower went down, said Ryoichi as he peered out the window, looking to see if any of the nearby buildings had structural damage. That or a power outage. Mikoto flicked the light switch only for the lights to remain off. Power outage. The door of the break room was then opened by Inspector Kamiya, their riot platoon leader. Why is he an inspector? Not gonna question it. Officer Sato, Takashima, and Furigawa report to the vehicle bay. We'll be working disaster relief. The 3 of them followed their orders and made their way to the vehicle bay. As part of a riot police unit, their main purpose was to maintain public order, but they also had lesser-known duties such as disaster relief and crisis response. Ichiro would quickly learn the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Headquarters was in a bad shape. Which one? You know how many Metropolitan Police Headquarters there are in Tokyo?
Who the fuck would want to go to Tokyo anyway? It's just Rat Haven.
That is true, Weebs.
What?
What?
Do you know how many rats are in Tokyo?
You're a different brain.
I'm not even going to attempt to understand what Dirie was just on about.
No, that's what Lapis said.
What?
What, Lapis said?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys have actually been speaking. Hold on.
Oh, well, I kind of just deafened myself for a while.
It's okay. Hey, Riley, when you gonna cover the fucking rat problem in Tokyo?
What now?
You don't know? Mr. Japanese over here doesn't know that fucking Tokyo has a rat problem?
Okay, so as Ichiro, Ryoichi, and Mikoto arrived at the vehicle bay, that they were quickly loaded into a police van that filled to the brim with other members of the unit. Not that was filled to the brim, that filled to the brim. They had another van, but considering someone was examining the engine, it was probably damaged. Not Riley.
Mm-hmm.
You're forgetting very important words in these sentences here. It was probably damaged during the earthquake, which is not what it says, but I'm gonna roll with it.
Hey, Minnie, can I ask something? Can I say something?
What?
I'm sorry for interjecting. When you do judge this time, can you when you're giving out scores, can you give like specific scores on like each thing?
Categories is what you're asking for.
So you
Yeah,
want more
like-
than just like an overall score? You want like a plot score? You want like a grammar score?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you
So then you can
plot
see what
score
you
to
want
a
to.
poem?
So then you can see what you can like approve on and stuff like.
Oh, yeah.
Diria, you have a lot to improve on, but we'll get there. We get there when we get there. So,
There.
as the van left the loading bay, Inspector Kamiya informed those in the van that they would be assisting a technical rescue squad that was already on the scene. The police radio of the van was buzzing with constant messages going, I thought the electronics were fried. You know what? I'm not going to question it. This is Inspector Kamiya. We'll check on their status on our way to the Minato ward. Inspector Kamiya, who was in the passenger seat, turned his head to the back. The department apparently lost contact with a group of police, and they want someone to check on them. The van suddenly thumped before coming to a stop right before an intersection. The driver panicked as he checked his mirrors before turning his head to the back and asking what he had run over. Officer Toho was in the very back of the van, with Ichiro peered out the window, but couldn't see anything in particular. Ichiro and Toho... Who the fuck's Toho? Quickly got out of...
Toes?
Not in the context of this story.
Pokemon?
Your mother?
Oh no, that's Ho-Oh. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, he's not one of the three that were introduced to us in the beginning, so I'm not going crazy. Riley is.
Who?
Toho!
Oh yeah, no, that's just. That was
Sorry, that's just some side character that they never introduced but are just naming and assuming you'll understand.
Ichiro and Toho quickly got out to inspect what the van ran over as others of the unit wait in the van. On the ground was an object with a tattered rag wrapped around it. Ichiro unwrapped the rag only for a chill to go down his spine as he took a few steps back. On the ground was a shattered human skull. Is this some kind of sick joke? Toho muttered from under his breath as he examined what remained of the shattered skull. Ichiro turned towards the sidewalk only to find more pieces of cloth and rags akin to the one on the ground. He unwrapped another to find a pile of bones, and continued unwrapping others only to find various assortments of bones. Strangely, the bones were clean of any blood. Toho reported back to Inspector Kamiya, and the rest of the riot platoon started inspecting the bones that littered the sidewalk. We have bones inside the cars as well. Who said that? Bruh. The entire
I
platoon
guess
was
the last person to speak would have said that, so...
Toho, I guess. This random officer we've never met before. The entire platoon was bewildered at the sight and kept investigating, but it only led to more questions. Suddenly, the sound of a crash piece pierced the air as the windows of the building at the corner of the intersection collectively broke in unison. Toho was the first to rush toward the corner of the intersection, only to stop dead in his tracks as he turned the corner. His head turned upward as he began taking a few steps back till he was tripped and was on the ground. Ichiro hastily turned the corner to find a towering mass staring directly at him. At first look, it appeared to be a giant construct made out of stone. The construct's shape was vaguely humanoid, though the proportions of its body were severely uneven. Its eyes, or what Ichiro presumed was its eyes, were a constant swirl of luminous red shades. Weren't they yellow before? You know what? Not gonna question it. Ichiro stood breathlessly as he still took in its enormous size. He didn't overpass the nearby building, but it must have been at least 7, 8, maybe 9 stories tall. Whatever it was, it started moving toward Ichiro as he staggered backwards, only for his legs to give out as he fell on his back. It wasn't until he tried to stand once again did he realize something was terribly wrong. Next to him on the ground was a piece of ceramic. It was part of his vest which was now falling into pieces. Ichiro tried to get up from the ground, but his arms were powerless to do so. It was as if his strength was drained. As Ichiro struggled to get up, he felt a wave of fatigue wash over him. By now, most of the riot police had turned the corner to see the behemoth, or at least Ichiro thought they did, as he heard a tirade of shouting and orders. Ichiro turned his head to Toho, who was only a few meters on the ground. Same as him. Ichiro's face became one of abject terror and panic as he saw the flesh of Toho's face slowly fall apart from bone.
How did I get that?
Unable to get up, Ichiro began crawling away as his helmet fell to the ground in pieces. The sound of gunshots started ringing in his ears as blood trickles through the sleeves of his uniform. Inexplicably, the blood that dripped from his arms seemingly evaporating upon hitting the ground. Every movement of his body became a struggle as the situation around him gradually worsened. Everyone, pull back, pull back. Wait, okay, now this... I'm gonna have a criticism for this later. The ground shook as the construct marched forward. The construct was too wide for the street and began scraping against the building, drowning out all other noise with the exception of the occasional string of gunshots. Ichiro's sight began to blur in and out of focus as he was now bleeding profusely all over his body. He wasn't going to get away. Wasn't able to get away. Whatever was doing this to him would surely kill him. At this point, Ichiro had lost his sight. Despite that, he still continued crawling onwards. Ichiro. He barely made out someone calling out his name, but he couldn't tell who. By now his strength had deteriorated. He could barely even muster the strength to turn his head. Ichiro felt someone grab onto his arm and begin dragging him. Come on, Ichiro. Ichiro finally realized it was Ryoichi's voice who was calling him. Despite his best effort, his body remained completely limp and he was continuously dragged across the ground. Ichiro's consciousness flicked as he barely held on to life. Just hang in there, Ichiro. Ichiro's arms suddenly dropped to the ground once again. It's fine, Ichiro. I just stumbled. Just take my hand. Ichiro reached out for Ryuichi's hand, only for it to fall to the ground. Mikoto, no. Ryuichi's initial voice of relief turned into one of anguish as his own voice gradually became fire, and Ichiro Sato drew his last breath. You know, Riley, I'd have less problems with this story if it was just this second section.
Yeah,
I actually
then,
like the second
here's
section
the
quite a
thing, they
bit.
don't like name it. They don't hype it up, and it clearly like apocalyptic, right?
Yeah.
So but instead in the first one, you're just like, yes, it originated in Tokyo. Let's go to Tokyo.
Despite the numerous errors in, like, grammar, this is a much better story. If it was closed, I think it's better.
I don't know about that.
I think it's better. I think it makes more sense.
I don't
at the very
think
least.
wacky inherently makes bad. Okay.
No, I don't think the first part's bad. I just think that it doesn't.
No, I mean Durian.
Oh.
I don't think wacky inherently means it's bad.
No.
I don't think yeah.
Riley's piece has fucking plot holes as hell.
I do have one
And
thing
has-
that I want to note. If the blood deteriorates upon hitting the ground, or it evaporates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the mention in this first one of there being blood in the car makes no sense.
It's not very consistent.
I can
Wait, can I
tell.
No,
ask a
nothing in
question?
this is.
Riley, what were you inspired by the name? Like Insania, Arrival of the Great Tide.
I just thought, okay, let's think. All right, I want all of these colossuses to be gray. All right, what should I call it? All right, Arrival of the Great Tide. And I was like,
Okay,
That's
Cool,
like
I
a-
guess. That's cool.
let's add another word to it.
Alright, can I ask you something, Riley?
Yes.
Why is an inspector leading a riot squad?
Because that's the actual title for, I looked this up, for an actual riot squad. I'm dead serious. You can check the Wikipedia page.
That's stupid.
Oh,
I mean, that's cool.
Wikipedia thing.
We learn something new every day.
Alright, well, I checked the source for Wikipedia. Check.
Did
That's
you?
where I
What's
found
the
the
source
source.
for Wikipedia, buddy?
Fun fact, it was in Japanese, so I had to go find a picture translator.
Oh, fuck.
Did you actually go through all that trouble? Because if you would have just gone on Wikipedia, like I would have been like, oh, okay.
No, well, you see, I had like a Japanese picture translator already like set up before then, like a while ago.
No.
So like I was like, you know what, might as well.
I never actually met somebody like who actually
Riley,
checks
why would you
Wikipedia
just make
sources.
like Godzilla meet
Godzilla.
like Attack on Titan?
Ooh, that was-
Sharks.
Okay, so
Riley, I have a challenge for you.
these are three.
Make a piece that isn't based in Japan.
challenge impossible.
Actually,
No.
I think all of your protagonists have been Japanese.
Yeah, that's why it's a challenge.
Yes.
Also, Riley, I also challenge you to actually read up on Tokyo City and not just, ooh, there's the Japanese there. Ooh.
I
There's
have.
this pretty city.
I tried.
Except it
Lapis,
isn't.
Lapis,
isn't.
I don't give a fuck if yours is Japanese or not. It's also a shit post that has. I read it. I read imposter and I instantly stopped reading. Lapis. That's about as soon as I read that word, I was done. And also, I read Saddam Hussein, so you know.
How about this, Riley? How about this, Riley?
Mhm.
Let me learn you some things about Japan.
DW//
They are
imposter.
racist as hell.
Yeah.
That is
Many
actually,
businesses do not allow foreigners.
Yeah.
Theory Ayers.
Their biggest city is filled with rats. I was actually gonna look this up.
Yeah.
Well, as like
Yeah.
35 million people, so I'd expect it to have a lot of rats.
All right,
But
so
it's like,
God, I. Well, I'm going to declare the winner before I declare scores this time.
Wait. Can I ask one thing?
Yeah.
For the next writing competition, can we like continue on these stories, like these
no, I
current
don't
ones?
want to
Yes,
hear
you
more.
can. Yes, you can. I'm doing
I
it.
will.
Yeah.
Oh,
The next
You
competition
can't.
is going to be a serial piece, something that is continuous.
You need to explain.
It has to be at least 15 pages,
whoa.
or fit a similar requirement, given that it is another type of story. 15 pages.
What about
Question.
Luna, who writes poems instead of like serials?
Unfortunate.
You can write serial poems. Poems can tell a story.
I guess.
And they don't have to. It can be like an anthology. People like writing anthologies.
Wait, what was the story of the first poem?
Okay, so
These
Basically-
fucking bugs having their mind controlled by
No,
monkeys.
I know about the headache, but I'm confused about the. But I
Oh,
I
that
got
one?
That part. Yeah, the first one.
that
Hollow
one
Knight.
that one wasn't. I don't think it mattered.
It's Hollow Knight, guys.
But yeah, it's about how like, you know that I think it's related to the meme. Do you know your creator? Do you fear it? With the guy talking to the fungus, that meme. Have you seen that before?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's related to that. I don't know. I'm undying or whatever. That thing.
I mean, fucking Luna could just answer.
Anyhow, I'm gonna declare a winner real quick, my gamers. The winner is unfortunately Dirie.
Nice.
This corrupt politician story was pretty powerful.
I thought it was the most entertaining. So
Well, it was also, like, the grammar-wise, compared to Riley, much better.
Wait, no,
Um,
that's not true. I just wrote on one go.
Duryea, trust me.
It was.
I don't know. Maybe there's so many grammar mistakes in Dirie that I just don't realize them. That there's just so
It's just
many
right.
that I just accept it and move on. But it felt easier to read. It somehow felt less long, despite being a longer piece.
Yeah, it didn't feel super fucking long.
It felt like I was reading your Apocalypse, while not initially explained, was an interesting one, going for like the climate crisis. I thought that your setting was overall better explained,
That this piece was better written overall.
and I just liked your piece. So congrats, you win. Fuck
Thank
you.
you.
Let me go through points. So, Luna, I'm gonna be straight with you. you're kind of fucked in all of my competitions because I don't like poems. Like, fundamentally. I try to be unbiased, but I do not like poems. Which is... your second piece was better. I thought it had the poetic flow, but it was written like prose in that sort of format.
I don't know.
So, I thought it was the better half. Or, well, more than half, but... you're kind of fucked in every writing competition. Because I don't like poems. Fundamentally, I dislike them. So, sorry. But, it was actually not bad. I thought it was pretty cool, what you're doing there, like, telling a person's stories, they fucking die. You know, I become a...
I think it was a lot of A-B rhymes, but
Yeah.
that might have also been in the beginning.
I don't know, it doesn't need to be a super complicated rhyme scheme, in my opinion, though.
Right, but you could also switch it up from A-B rhymes.
Yeah. Anyhow, it was an interesting story. I liked it. It was short, simple, easy to read. It flowed well, which is kind of like the nature of poetry, so it better flow well. But anyhow, it was a pretty good story. It gets like a solid 6.5, but that's only because I don't like poetry. If it wasn't a poetry, I would probably like it more. Anyhow, moving on to Riley first, because he didn't win. Fuck you, Riley. This isn't even out of bias. This is just... your story. The first half was confusing. It didn't explain a whole lot. We don't really get to know much about the setting, besides that we're in Japan, and that we're dealing with more Japanese people. The characters don't have characterization. We don't know what our protagonist looks like.
No, they have characterization. Alright, look at their opening
Well, one's a
line,
little
okay?
bitch. One's a little bitch.
Yeah, exactly. The one opens up sighing, depressed, moping, and then the other's just like, yeah, let's go to this place that's gonna get us killed.
The characters
So we have a
didn't-
depressed man and a suicidal woman. Alright, and then we have a riot squad.
Yeah, and I thought the... you really, like, the first half, I would have given it maybe a 3. Maybe. Second half pulled it, it got it like a 7. Maybe.
So, fun facts of Riley. What I learned about Japanese riot police units. They actually do disaster relief. Fun facts, Riley.
I don't care. Anyhow, it was a more interesting story. If it was on its own, I would have thought that's a really cool story. But considering you packaged it with the other half, I didn't like it very much. And it also had a bunch of grammar mistakes.
Yeah.
More noticeable ones, at least. Because I'd read it, and then I'd be like, wait, that's not right. Because I'd accidentally fill in the word myself, because I know how these sentences are supposed to flow. And then, guess what you don't do? Make it flow. So, that really weighed it down. Grammar wasn't terrible in the first half, but it wasn't amazing. Got some flaws that I pointed out.
Favorite woman.
Yeah.
What's this funny?
Wait, Riley, you should download this thing called Grammarly.
He has Grammarly, he just...
You don't need Grammarly.
No, but when I make like
You
an obvious
don't.
mistake,
You need to
while I'm
learn how to
typing-
fucking write.
Yeah.
I don't reread
and
my
edit.
pieces, which is probably not the best.
I did not get the edit the second half. I'll be honest.
You have a month. You have no defense.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Anyhow, if you guys don't have 15 pages for the next piece, or the equivalent, dependent on your piece, which, by the way, this doesn't have to be a fiction piece. This is just a serial piece. You are explaining something to me. You can write an essay if you want, Lapis. So if you want to write a long
I
essay...
can write an essay. All right, I'm gonna write an essay on why I deserve my my weeb card back.
If you write an interesting enough essay with good grammar that has good points and arguments, and it's serial, and it explains what things point by point, and it's a longer form essay, 15 pages, then I'll read it.
Lapis is like in college, so that's probably what she has to do on like, I don't know, once a month or something. I don't know how college works.
Why
Yeah,
you
okay.
discriminated against me in every... Look, you can write an essay on whatever you want. It has to be a longer form serial piece that has multiple sections. And that's all I'm asking. Whether you want to
Cool.
chapter that, or you want to bullet, or you want to like divide it by sections, however you want to write your pieces. Anthologically, doesn't matter.
I'm gonna submit 15 pages of writing, but they're not in the correct order.
I
Just,
hate that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna submit and sign.
If it's a better piece by then okay. But it just has to be a serial piece. You could take an old piece that you've written if you want to expand it. Or you can do something brand new.
I mean, I am gonna have to focus on this one day. If I
Riley, do you want to like have times when we go to Discord and write on our story? Yeah, so we don't have to like do it all like all at the
Riley,
same.
you want to come
all
over
right.
to study?
Anyhow, I'm not done yet. I still have to judge your piece, Deerie.
No.
So, Deerie,
I thought it was a good like.
I thought it was
ship
funny. It was funny. All right. I thought that you had some interesting political commentary in there, mixed into your shit posting.
The CEO was the best character.
Well, he was the only fucking character developed. He was the only actual character.
Wait, who's the only actual character?
The main character.
Oh.
The CEO, I think.
I mean, the president.
Or yeah, the president. I don't know. Riley said the CEO, and I was just like, okay.
No, the CEO.
I thought-
was like fund this guy, and then we're gonna fund his campaign advertisements.
Oh
and
no,
then
that was the
we can-
president. who said
That
was
was the
the
president, you
No, that was
dumbass.
the-
What the fuck are you on, Riley?
Anyhow,
Sorry, I thought he renamed the president.
no. Anyhow, dude, your problems were you didn't have consistency a lot of the time,
Yeah.
It
So-
felt like a shitpost.
and I accepted it as a shitpost. It was actually just a better.
It was a good shitpost.
It was entertaining. It wasn't poorly written in most places. Like, I thought you had confusing points, and you had an overuse of parentheses, which I don't like in stories usually.
Yeah. I like using
Yes,
parentheses
parentheses?
personally.
Yeah, he had a lot of
I use it
parentheses.
all the time.
Why the fuck do you have parentheses?
I-
There's
I don't
no
know.
place in writing where you put parentheses.
Yeah, but
I
that-
personally like it.
I would never. Do
No,
that.
you put commas.
Actually, in the place of parentheses,
Literally.
you're supposed to put commas, is the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Commas can be used for breaks in sentences when you want to just interject more information.
Yeah,
The more
you can
learn.
literally just split a sentence in half if you want to with
You could also just
commas.
use it as a pause.
And you can also just
Or
use it
you
as-
could use a colon or a semicolon.
Oh.
add some variety to your writing, Riley. Or Riley? Sorry.
Dairy.
well, yeah, you
no,
also
no, I agree
Riley,
with that.
Riley,
statement
also
as was.
you should add some more variety to your writing. Because stop writing about fucking Japan.
No.
It's not interesting, Riley.
All right then.
None of us care.
All right then.
If you don't make it an interesting setting, I'm not gonna care about the characters.
All right then.
Make
there's-
it about like Louisiana.
This can be anything. If you want to write a several chapter
I know,
long
if you
fantasy
make it-
story, it's fine.
That would be like the only way I submit a piece.
The only limitation is it has to be 15 pages long. It's due in a month. So let's say August. We're gonna go with August
18.
Six.
Make it a month and a half.
August 6th for I can't do August 18th. August 6th for now. We're gonna go with that. So
Why can't you do the 18?
yeah, you get paid. Well, you get paid for these ones, winning these ones too. So Duryea, you have $20 that you can cash in from me at any time.
Alright. I'll think about it. Maybe.
Just send me
If
whatever
I
it is.
turn into B movie, will you read it?
No, because that's
If I alter the B movie, will you read it?
maybe. I'll consider it. I'll put it under.
Thank you, Minnie.
I'll put it under consideration. Anyhow, thank you all for coming. I hope that those that participated thought they gained something out of this, as in good writing advice.
I also gained pain from listening to my own piece.
Well, you have to suffer a little bit.
Yep.
Anyhow, fuck you guys.